What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope you're all doing well. We're gonna do the National League preview today. We're gonna start with some hockey like we did yesterday. Hurricanes over the Sabres 5-1. Hurricanes are rolling. Of course, Boston's leaps and bounds ahead of them, but still, Carolina is the clear-cut second best team in the East and probably the clear-cut second best team in hockey. We'll see what happens. You got the Bruins over the Maple Leafs 5-2. Bruins continue to steamroll for the league. As we have the All-Star break coming up for that. College basketball, you had the top team in the world. Purdue beats Penn State 80-60. Purdue was rolling 22-1 and 11-1 in the Big Ten. Number 16 Xavier over number 17 Providence 85-83 in overtime. That was a great game. A monumental upset. Unranked Florida beats number 2 Tennessee 67-54. Castleton on Florida had 20 points and 9 rebounds. Number 25 Auburn over Georgia 94-73. Marquette over Villanova. Marquette's ranked 14th right now, 73-64. Let's go to see Marquette ranked 14th. We got some local teams here in the tri-state area doing okay. You got Providence at 17th. You know, they're pretty good last year. I think they're a 4 or 5 in the tournament. You got Marquette at 14th this year, so that's good to see. I believe UConn is ranked. That's nothing too new. On to the NBA action. Sixers over the Magic, 105-94. James Harden, 26 points, 9 rebounds, and 10 assists. Portland over Memphis, 122-112. Dame, 42 points, 8 rebounds, 10 assists. He continues to go off. Celtics thrashed the Nets, 139-96. It was 46-16 after a quarter. Tatum had 31 points, 9 rebounds. Didn't even play in the fourth quarter. He had 18 points in the first quarter, Tatum. Nets had 16 as a team, so Tatum outscored the entire Nets team in the first quarter. I mean, Jacques Vaughn, their interim coach, he's done a good job there, but this was the first game since he's taken over that the Nets look completely uncompetitive. Right from the jump. So Celtics jumped out. This game was over literally within 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes, this game was over. And it didn't look like they tried to fight back. They got to show some fun. I don't care if Kevin Durant's out. Yeah, Kyrie Irving was one of the best guards in the NBA. You got more than enough. I mean, Boston's the best team in the league. I did not think they would beat Boston. But to be uncompetitive and lose by 43, Tatum Brown didn't even play in the fourth quarter, that's just embarrassing. That's disgusting. The Rockets beat the Thunder 112-106. You had Tony Eason, 20 points, 13 rebounds. T-Wolves over the Warriors, 119-114 in overtime. Naz Reid, 24 points, 13 rebounds. This Golden State team is just not the same team. The problem has been they can't win on the road. I don't understand. As many veterans they have, as many rings all those guys have won. They're 7-19 on the road. At home they're fine. At home I think that puts them at 19-6 at home. I've never seen anything like this. Kings over the Spurs, 119-109. Sabonis 34 points and 11 rebounds. He's having a great year as Sabonis. Jazz over the Raptors, 131-128. Laurie Markkanen, 28 points and 13 rebounds in that one. Well, Walker Kessler also had a double-double. Walker Kessler's playing very well. Got in for Gobert. That's been a big pickup. Yeah, the Hawks thrashed the Suns, 132-100. Dejounte Murray had 21 points and 8 assists. Phoenix really needs Devin Booker back as they have been struggling for a while now. It's just a game over 500. Let's talk about the coaching carousel. Obviously, you only got 2 head coach jobs remaining, and that's Arizona and that's Indianapolis. Arizona, I'm going to go over all the coaching carousel because there's a lot going on. Arizona, this is who they've interviewed. They interviewed Brian Flores, which I don't understand. I think Flores, there's a second chance to be a head coach, but I don't think that's a good fit. You saw how him and Tua didn't work. One think he's going to work with freaking Kyler, who is, Tua, but obviously shorter, somehow shorter than Tua, because he's how small he is. And then he's, even more of a crybaby. Like, that's not going to work. Flores works well with a veteran quarterback. That's why, of course he was the defensive coordinator, but, in New England, he got along with Tom Brady. And then he goes to Miami to be a head coach, and he did not get along with Tua. So that's not going to work, They interviewed their defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph. I don't think that's going to gain any traction. The Broncos defensive coordinator, Gerald Rivera, who Denver actually wants to try to keep now, even after hiring Peyton. And then Sean Payton wanted Vic Fangio to come there. Well, more on him in a minute. Probably in a few minutes, rather. Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn they're looking at. We're also looking at both the Bengals coordinators. Their defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, and their offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan. And then in Indy's done a very deep head coach search. You know, they interviewed a former Lions head coach, Jim Caldwell, Bills offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, Broncos D coordinator, I'm looking at Carolina. That is the wrong team. Carolina, of course, already named Frank Reich, who's began to fill out his staff. More on that in a bit. Colts looked at Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy. I heard he's in the mix. He could get the job. Broncos defensive coordinator Joe Rivero. Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kafka. They also interviewed at one point Giants defensive coordinator Wink Martindale. Rams D coordinator Raheem Morris. For some reason, their interim coach Jeff Saturday has a shot there. Eagles offensive coordinator Shane Steichen. Their special teams coordinator Bubba Ventrone. I don't get it, but that's on them. The Packers special teams coordinator Vic Bisaccia, of course, the year prior to this, was the interim coach with the Raiders and did a great job. And the Bengals offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan. So we'll see where that goes. Let's talk about the coordinator carousel, which continues to swirl. You know, Ravens still looking for a new offensive coordinator. They haven't really interviewed anybody else. Yes, they have Chad Hall, the Bills wide receivers coach. They interviewed him yesterday. We'll see where that goes. The favorite, probably right now, because he's the only guy that has been, at least is that we know of, has gotten a second interview, has been the Seahawks quarterbacks coach, Dave Canales. And Carolina's still looking for a new offensive coordinator. You know, their Reich's not going to bring back Ben McAdoo, obviously. You know, they requested to interview Jim Bob Cooter, who's I believe right now is with Jacksonville as their passing game coordinator. Prior to that, he was off the corner. He was off the corner of the Lions at one point. You have Dallas looking for a new offensive coordinator. You know, Schottenheimer was mentioned. I mentioned, you know, they interviewed the Panthers running backs coach Jeff Nixon, who they already replaced. Frank Reich brought in Deuce Staley, who was the running back coach of the Lions right now. He's one of the best running backs coach in the league. He goes to Carolina. And the Cowboys will actually interview the Rams tight ends coach, Thomas Brown, who's been a hot candidate for both offensive coordinator and head coach the last couple of years. You know, Texans looking for a new offensive coordinator, as they brought in a new head coach in D'Amico Ryan. He's not going to bring back Pat Hamilton, so they interviewed the Patriots tight ends coach, Nick Cow. He's been a hot offensive coordinator candidate this offseason. The 49ers passing game coordinator, Bobby Slowick, is going to interview. So, you know, the Niners love their passing game, their running game coordinators. A lot of them got head coach jobs. You know, Mike McDaniel. You know, Michael Flores now an offensive coordinator. And then they requested to interview the Bengals wide receivers coach, Troy Walters. So we'll see where that goes. You know, obviously the Chargers already hired Kellen Moore. I don't know why. Rams decided they looked at the Jets offense and thought, let's get some of that. Why, I don't know. So Michael Flurry is over there. Bucks are still looking for a new offensive coordinator. They actually, they actually interviewed Ronald Curry, the quarterbacks coach for the Saints. They interviewed. You know, they also interviewed Jim Bob Cooter, the passing coordinator for the Jaguars, former OC in Detroit. You know, Tennessee is still looking. Washington is still looking. Nothing too new over there. They're still working through on the defensive side of the ball. And you know, Atlanta brought in Ryan Nielsen, the Cody corner from the Saints, who are going to have a completely new defensive staff because they had Cody corners last year because their D corner, Dan Allen, became the head coach. Ryan Nielsen became the full-time D coordinator for the Falcons, and then they just parted ways with Chris Richard, who's a hot candidate for defensive corner now anyway. So not going to so completely new staff. You know, Carolina's still looking. Houston needs a defensive coordinator, so it looks like DeMaco is going to bring in a D coordinator. I assume DeMaco will, if not call the plays, will be very involved. You know, no interview, but they've mentioned three guys as candidates. The 49ers D-line coach, Chris Kosarek, I'm sure DeMaco was very close with him. The Jets safeties coach, Marquand Manuel, who was a defensive coordinator at one point, and the 49ers passing game specialist and secondary coach, Corey Undlin. I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm sure DeMaco knows him as well. He might bring one of his friends. I want to talk about the Dolphins. It was reported that they hired Vic Fangio, named the highest paid coordinator in the league. He's one of the best defensive coordinators on the market. But apparently they're having trouble finalizing their contract, so it's possible Fangio might not be going there after all. There's been rumors for weeks that Sean Payton wants to hire him as his defensive coordinator whenever he went. Now, of course, he's finalizing his deal to be head coach in Denver, so we'll see what happens. Never know. Maybe Fangio, his goal was to pair up with Payton, and then maybe he looked like, oh, Payton might go back to the booth for another year. So let me go and take a job. So he took the Miami job, and now all of a sudden Payton, was finalizing the deal with Denver. He was like, oh wait, hold on a second, I want to go with Payton. So maybe now he's just kind of like, should I stick with Miami where I already technically agreed to, or should I ditch them and go with Sean Payton in Denver? I'm sure I heard the they want to bring back Ejiro Evero, their defensive coordinator, the guy I had last year. So we'll see what happens. The other people in Miami interview was their linebackers coach, Anthony Campanelli, the Seahawks defensive assistant Sean Desai, who was defensive coordinator of the Bears for 2 seasons recently, and Chris Richard, who was the co-D coordinator in the Saints. They just let him go, so now he's basically a free agent at this point. Also interviewed him. Vikings, they actually they would like to interview the Broncos defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero. He's still in limbo whether or not he's even on Denver's staff, so we'll see where that goes. Of course, the 49ers need a new defensive coordinator because, of course, DeMeco Ryans took the head coach job in Houston. So they requested to interview Steve Wilkes, who's the former interim coach of Carolina. He's a pretty good defensive coordinator. Of course, they interviewed the Commanders' defensive basketball coach, Chris Harris, who just took that job. He was the passing corner with Carolina, I believe, last year. He just took the DB coach job with Washington recently. Now he might be leaving already. And Vic Fangio's on the radar. They're going to get him. He's either going to finalize his deal with Miami or he's going to jump ship to Denver with Sean Payton, but he is on the radar. So we'll see what happens. That's what we got for the coaching carousel. Now it is time for the main attraction of my show, my MLB preview. We're going to do the National League today. A couple of small things for MLB before I start. The Dodgers extend Tony Gonsolin. They give him a 2-year extension worth $6.6 million. He's when healthy, he's been a great starting pitcher for the last couple of years. And Seattle extends Dylan Moore 3 years, $8.87 million. He's been a solid utility guy on their bench. So those two guys, their arbitration years pretty much get blown out. Without further ado, let's talk about my favorite team, the New York Mets. Okay, the NL East is going to be a bloodbath. You got 3 really good teams. You got the Mets, you got the Braves, and you got the Phillies. I'm going to take the Mets to come out of the division. I think they squeak past Atlanta. Atlanta, I think, is definitely more of a threat than Philly. I think Philly will probably be in the playoffs. And they'll be, they'll hang around the division race, but mainly it'll be the Mets and the Braves. I think this could go the division of the NL East could go down to the wire once again. I'll see the Mets squeak out of that. Mets had a monstrous offseason despite the Carlos Correa not getting him, which I do think was the right move. You're not getting a 12-year contract to a guy with that kind of injury history. They still, they revamped their rotation despite losing Jacob deGrom, of course, who's probably the best pitcher in baseball. You also lose Talon Walker and Chris Bassett. You land Justin Verlander, who right now might be the league's best pitcher. They gave him 2 years, like $86 million. They brought in Kodai Senga, a sensation from Japan, who's been working really hard. They gave him a 5-year deal. They also add Jose Quintana from the Cardinals. He's a solid innings eater. They added him as well. In the lineup, they re-signed Brandon Nimmo, who's one of the league's best center fielders, a fan favorite. Really good guy in their clubhouse. They end up locking him up for 7 years. They added to their bullpen. Also, you lock up Edwin Diaz, the league's best reliever. Give him a 5-year deal of over $100 million. They brought back Adam Ottavino on a 2-year deal. He was their second best reliever last year. He had an ERA just above 2. They brought in David Robinson in 1 year, $10 million. He's a really good late inning reliever. They make a trade for Brooks Raley, who's one of the best left-handed relievers in the game when it comes to, specifically against left-handed hitters. He had a nice year for the Rays last year. So the Mets definitely revamped their bullpen, something that they need to do. And, of course, you had Tommy Pham to your bench. I think their rotation is loaded with Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer at the top. They reunite. Of course, they were dominant in Detroit years ago. You added Senga. You still have Carlos Carrasco there, as well as Jose Quintana in the back. They should have a great rotation. Bullpen, which last year I thought struggled a bit. No, if you look just the stats, they look like they were pretty good, but just watching them, they blew a bunch. I mean, obviously Diaz was fantastic. Ottavino pitched great, and Seth Lugo was very good. Of course, now he's in San Diego. Outside of that, they didn't have a ton. But now, adding, bring obviously Diaz and Ottavino back. You add a couple of guys. If you have Drew Smith healthy, you got some pretty good depth. Guys that can give you length. David Pearson, Tyler McGill, Eliezer Hernandez is a guy who might start in AAA, but he's another guy that you have there. Even Jeff Brigham, who will probably make the opening day bullpen. So I'm very excited for my Mets. I think they'll have a very nice year. Of course, they just extended Jeff McNeil, 4 years, $50 million. Should have a very good lineup. I wouldn't mind if they brought in one more bat. Also have a couple of prospects that, the third best prospect in baseball, catcher Francisco Alvarez. He got a couple of quality assets, Brett Beatty and Mark Vientos were both third basemen. Of course, Brett Beatty a little more high tower than Vientos. So, my guess is Alvarez. No, he says he's been working hard. He says he plans to be on the opening day roster. I think he'll start in AAA. I think he'll start AAA Syracuse because you sign Omar Narvaez. Outside of last year, is a good hitter. He's a decent defender, and you have Tomas Nido there, who's a great defender. So they'll probably have those two guys platoon, and it'll be silly to have three catchers. So they might start him in AAA. Beatty and Vientos, I think one of those guys will come off the bench. I think Brett Beatty will probably compete for the starting third base job. If he wins it, then they'll maybe you give him the job, and maybe you have Escobar on the bench, or maybe you have him platoon at DH with Vogelbach, because Vogelbach can't hit. Is very bad against lefties. He can only hit the righties. And I think Mark Vientos could make the opening roster off the bench because he kills lefties. Maybe he gets some time at DH. So we'll see. But I think the Mets are really good this year. Moving on, let's go to the Atlanta Braves. I have them at 95 wins. They got a really good team. I can't stand them, but they have a great team. They're on with Acuna and Albi, Austin Riley, Olsen, and you add Sean Murphy, who's a very catcher, great defender. He's got good power. You got a very good lineup. Michael Harris was the rookie of the year last year. You got a very good rotation. I love their top three. Max Fried is a stud. You got Kyle Wright, who last year led the league in wins. Spencer Strider had a really good rookie year last year. Also has a glorious mustache. You have Charlie Morton, who, he's not quite the same, but he's still a decent pitcher. And remember, you got Mike Soroka coming back. Mike Soroka, it appears to be returning. He hasn't pitched since August of 2020, so it's been over a year, almost a year and a half. But, of course, he was a stud in the making, so I think he might be their fifth starter. They have a very deep bullpen. This team has it all. Lose a couple of guys. You lose Swanson, all-star shortstop. Remember, Vaughn Grissom's the guy who came up at one point was hitting like 400. His average came down a little bit, but he's a guy who was red hot. They called him up. They called him up in September when Ozzy got hurt. You lose your closer, Kelly Jansen, but still, you have Rafael Iglesias, who's a good closer, still have a very deep bullpen. They actually added to their bullpen. They had Lucas Lucky. They make a trade with the Yankees. They had Nick Anderson, who a lot of injuries last year, but when healthy, he's a really good reliever with the Rays. Joe Jimenez, you make a trade for him and get him from Detroit. So, Atlanta's a very complete team. They can easily win the NL East. It's definitely between those two teams. Phillies are good, but I think the Mets and Braves are probably elite. Moving on to the Phillies, I think they'll win about 90 games, probably. They have a really good lineup. I mean, Schwarber, Real Muto, Hoskins. You land Trey Turner in free agency. Just go down the list. My big problem is Bryce Harper, who, when he's healthy, is probably top 5 player in the game. He had a lot of shoulder problems last year. He had Tommy John in the offseason. Or I'm sure it was Tommy John, but he had a major surgery. He's probably out half the year. You won't see him until probably about the All-Star break. So their lineup, with Harper, is a top 5 lineup in the league. Without him, it's still a very good lineup, but it's not quite as good. I do like the rotation. I think the rotation will be even better. At the top, having Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola is one of the best duos in the league. Adding Talon Walker, who was with the Mets the last 2 years, is a nice guy to get. He's a really good second or third starter. Ranger Suarez pitched well last year. And the 5th starter spot's definitely open. Right now, it's probably Bailey Falter. I mean, you lost Kyle Gibson and Zach Eflin. So, probably give it to Bailey Falter, who did struggle last year, but that's probably who it goes to. The bullpen is definitely better. You make the trade to Gregory Soto. That was a good move. You give up a bunch of depth for that, but they needed a true closer. Craig Kimbrough isn't the same anymore. Ceramic Domingue, I think, is a little bit better in the setup role than the closer role. Gregory Soto's a very good closer. You got Domingue out right. You add Craig Kimbrough, I think he can give you something. We'll see. I think the bullpen will be better, so the pitching should be better. Rob Thompson, did a great job, completely turned their season around and had a wonderful run to the World Series. So Phillies should be a team. And the first, they'll probably hang around the playoff picture, and then the second, once they get Harper back, probably turn it on and they'll lock up a spot. And of course, they have the experience because most of his team was in the World Series last year. Now let's go to the Miami Marlins. Okay, the Marlins kind of annoy me. Not only because for whatever reason, no matter how bad they are, they always Mets always have a little bit of trouble with them. They usually, when they're as good as they are, they end up beating them, but they always play them close. I never understand. I'm like, the Mets are just, or be a top 5 team league, and the Marlins are, if it wasn't for the Washington Nationals just giving up, the Marlins would be in last place. So every year, people are like, oh, they got all this young talent, they got great pitching, it's their young hair thicker stuff forward, they could be in the playoffs. And then they win 7. They go 68, 90, whatever, and they're like, "Oh, what the heck happened?" So it's annoying. But they made a couple of additions. They make the big trade. They trade Pablo Lopez, who's probably your second best starter, but they have so much starting pitching. For Luis Arraez, the reigning batting champ, they're gonna put him at second. They're gonna move Josh Chisholm to center field. You had Gene Segura, who's past his prime, but still a solid player. And you had Johnny Cueto to your rotation. One trade that didn't make a lot of sense. They just made it. They traded Richard Blyer for Matt Barnes. Matt Barnes had over 8 last year. And a ton of injury, had a disastrous year. And Blyer has been a solid left-hander in their bullpen for multiple years. I didn't get that trade at all. They got some really good pitching. Alcantara is a top 5 pitcher in the game. This one was Cy Young. Probably at this point, if outside of Verlander and Scherzer, there's no national pitcher that even compares to them besides Alcantara. Luzardo pitched very well. Edward Cabrera pitched well. Braxton Garrett pitched well. Anyway, Cuello, so they should have a really good rotation. I like their bullpen. Dylan Floro, big year last year. They got a nice bullpen with Chargois and Stephen Oker, Tommy Nance. But they still have a lot of offense. They still have enough. Even with adding Arraez as well as Gene Segura, they got some young guys who, we'll see. Obviously, you'll have Chisholm healthy. And you got some young guys who can, but. I love Jazz. Luis Arraez, I'm sure he'll hit 300. Garrett Cooper's pretty good. He's okay. Segura's okay. And that's how Avisel Garcia was terrible last year. Jorge Soler was terrible last year. Wendell's okay. He's there for his defense. Also, this is a team that, on paper, it could be good defensively. When you look deeper, you got, Jazz Chisholm's never played the outfield before. He's a great, second baseman / shortstop, but he's never played the outfield. I mean, he's very confident that he can win a Gold Glove out there. He said it. And I love Jazz. I mean, I don't know why he's on Michelle. I don't have a problem with him as a player. I thought they were better players. I think he's a great player, and I think he's going to be an all-star for a long time. But again, he's never played the outfield before. You got, Luis Arraez, who last year who came up second baseman, but was terrible over there. So the Twins moved him to first last year. They're moving him back to second. Wendell's a great second baseman and a great third baseman. Hasn't played a ton of shortstop before, so Gene Segura is right now a third baseman. Isn't quite the same defensively. So I don't know. I mean, they have a lot of the guys. When they're at their normal position, if they were to put everyone at their top position, they would probably be very good defensively. But they're playing a lot of guys out of position, so that could hurt them as well. I think they'll be a little bit better. They're bringing Skip Schumacher in as a manager, which I like. He's been a top manager candidate for a while. I think he'll make a great manager. He's also he's very young. It's a young team. I think it's a good fit. But I'll give them 75 wins. They're trending in the right direction, but not there yet. Now on to the Nationals, who might be the worst team in baseball. They're going to lose 100 games, probably even 105. They didn't add much, This team has a lot of former top prospects on their team that failed. Like Don Pfaff, more flop with the Mets first baseman. They have him. They have Yammer Candelario coming with the Cubs, was traded to Detroit. Now came up with, turned to Detroit. He hasn't worked out. They have him. They got Luis Garcia hasn't worked out so far. Victor Robles hasn't worked out so far. They got a lot of guys like that. They pick up Jeter down, who the Red Sox got for Mookie Betts, who they just released. And the lineup isn't good. They have a bunch of young guys that I like. I really like C.J. Abrams. He's really young. Kevin Ruiz, who was mid last year, but I like his skill set. I think he's got a chance to be a great catcher. Luis Garcia is so young. Lane Thomas was pretty good last year. But still, their lineup's very unproven. The rotation, Josiah Gray struggled last year as a rookie, but I do like his skill set. Mackenzie Gore was meh. I like his skill set. Paul Espino's okay. Trevor Williams, who pitched well with the Mets last year as a reliever and a fill-in starter. He's going to be in the rotation. First of all, Steven Strasburg, I don't know if he's even going to pitch this year. He's pitched like 5 times the last 3 years since he got the $240 million contract. Patrick Corbin is cooked. He had the worst ERA in the league last year, and I think the most low. The ERA was 7 last year, and he made 30 starts. That's hard to do. That's how bad he was. And he's got a couple years left on his $150 million deal, so they can't trade that contract. Their bullpen's not that good. They don't really have a closer. Their closer one is probably Cal Finnegan. But their only really good reliever was Tanner Rainey, who was doing a pretty good job closing. He had Tommy John, so you probably won't see him this year. So this team has nothing. Also, Dave Martinez, he's not that good of a manager. His first year wasn't good. He was losing the locker room. The team, was expected to go to the playoffs. And then they were below 500. All right, he wins the World Series in his second year. Cool them for turning them around and getting them a ring. But since then, 2020 they weren't that good, and then 2020, in 2021, they tore that team apart. But even before that, they had a decent squad, and they weren't even that competitive. And obviously last year, again, they had a horrible team. But they probably should have. They shouldn't. I think they should have been that bad. They were they were the worst team in the National League last year by a long shot. I thought they could have been a starting one team last year. And I don't know what's going to happen. If this team wins more than 60 games, it's probably a success. So I don't know, but they're going to suck. They'll probably lose at least 105 games. Moving on to National League Central, St. Louis Cardinals. I think the Cardinals, they're a real solid team. They got a nice lineup. Obviously, having Arenado and Goldschmidt in the middle is probably the best, lineup duo in the league. Both are Arenado's a top 5 guy in the game. Goldschmidt, the reigning MVP of the National League, top 10 guy in the game. You had Wilson Contreras, who's one of the best offensive catchers in the league. You got Brent Donovan's a good young player. I like Tommy Evans at short. You got some young guys that struggled. Dylan Carlson, Tyler on the outfield. If they bounce back, they could have a dangerous lineup. I like their rotation. They got some injuries though. Flaherty, who when healthy is one of the best starting pitchers in the game, but hasn't been able to stay healthy the last couple of years. If he stays healthy, he could be an ace. Miles Michaels had a bounce back year. Adam Wright's still kicking. He's still a pretty solid pitcher. Your Joe Montgomery pitched really well. I'm excited what they're going to get from him. Dakota Hudson now another year removed from Tommy John, or much for Tommy. I think it was Tommy John. So they got. I like their rotation. My problem is their bullpen. I love Ryan Helsley. He was lights out last year. He was untouchable last year. He's probably a top three relievers right now. Probably Edwin Diaz, Emmanuel Clase in Cleveland, and then Ryan Helsley. I like Giovanni Gallegos. I like Andre Palanta. Outside of that, Janice Cabrera struggled a bit last year. Jordan Hicks was terrible last year. Chris Stratton wasn't that good. Their bullpen worries me a little bit. Also, Ali Marmol, who I like him, but he's a very young guy. He's only 37, 38 years old, coaching a older team that, has high expectations and really needs to get, and, probably should, expectation at this point is probably to get to at least the NLCS. And I don't think they're good enough to do that. I think they're They're not in the good division. Milwaukee's pretty mediocre. The Cubs might be a little better, but probably aren't a playoff team. And the Reds and the Pirates suck, especially the Pirates. So they're probably good enough because they'll beat up on the teams in their division. They'll win 90 games and win their division. But when they play the Dodgers, Mets, Braves, those teams, they really don't have a shot. You saw last year, they played very well in the second half. They won over 90 games, won their division. This team could, possibly be a dark horse to go to the World Series, and then they got swept by the Phillies in the first round. So, that was, obviously was not where they expected, their season to end. Our Pujols and Yadier Molina no longer there. They lose that leadership. But I think they'll win their division. I'll give them 9-2 wins in the division, but probably going to lose in the first round. Now in Milwaukee, they definitely they pinched a lot of pennies. You traded one of your best power hitters, Hunter Renfroe, to the Angels for a couple of prospects. That trade didn't make a lot of sense to me. You trade your starting second baseman Colton Wong. You do get Jesse Winker back in that deal, who last year struggled. Prior to that, he was an all-star. So we'll see what version they get of him. You make the trade to get Owen Miller for some depth. You bring in Brian Anderson, more failed top prospect of the Marlins, for some depth. He might start for them because they got nobody else. This team's got great pitching. A lot of injuries in the rotation last year. With Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, Freddie Peralta, maybe the best rotation trio in the league. You had Wade Miley, who, remember, a couple of years ago was really good for the Brewers. Dan Stretch was great in the playoffs. Eric Lauer was good last year. So much depth there. Very good bullpen. Even without Hader, Devin Williams was very good. You got Matt Bush, Hobie Milner, Jake Cousins. They got a good bullpen. I love Craig Counsell as a manager, but they don't have enough hitting. They just don't. Okay? They have some power. Willie Adames hit 30 bombs last year. You got Tellez hit 30-plus bombs. Jesse Winker has an ability to give you 25, 30 bombs. William Contreras, who's their new catcher. You make the weird move where the 3-team trade with the A's, Murphy going to Atlanta, and Pena getting traded. He's got power, so they have a lot of power. But their team, if they can get 3-4 home runs, all right, they'll win. If they can't get a bunch of home runs, they're not going to score probably more than 2 or 3 runs. They just don't. They're too reliant on their offense. They just are. They are way too reliant on the home run. It's not going to work. I don't think they're going to score enough runs. I'll give them 84 wins, but I don't have them making the playoffs. Moving on to the Cubs. So, they definitely got a little better. They had a nice offseason. You land Dansby Swanson. You gave him 7 years. They gave him like $177 million. You went Mancini for a 2-year deal. Held DH for them. Great story. He's a solid player. You had Eric Hosmer, who's past his prime, is still a decent first baseman. Also, you give Bellinger a 1-year deal. He's a guy who's a great center fielder. Since he won MVP, he hasn't been able to hit at all. He's been a 200 hitter the last 3 years, but he won an MVP 4 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. We'll see what happens. You had Tucker Barnhart to catch. He can't hit, but another great defender. You had Tyone to your rotation. That's a nice pickup. 4 years, 68's a lot. But at the end of the day, that's a good pickup. There is Andrew Smiley, who ate some nice innings in the back of the rotation. I like them adding Berger to their bullpen. He's a nice late inning option. Their lineup's actually pretty good. Ian Happ had a career year last year. Swanson, I think if Sai Suzuki's healthy, he's a guy who's got a ton of talent. I like Mancini. Nico Horn's a young guy that I like. So Patrick Wisdom can give you 30 home runs. Problem is, I don't think their rotation is that good. Marcus Stroman is good, but he's not an ace. Also got a big mouth. Justin Steele was good last year, but Kyle Hendricks is older. I don't love the rotation, and their bullpen is also, it's decent. Brendan Hughes did a good job at closing last year. Outside of that, Roman Wick's pretty good. Michael Rucker's pretty good. I think they'll be a little bit better than they won 74 games last year, but still probably a year or two away. I like what Jed Hoyer's doing. David Ross, I think he's a little overrated as a manager. We'll see what happens. I like what Jed Hoyer's doing with this team, but still a year or two away. I'll give him 78 wins. And to the Reds are going to be horrible again. The lineup is not good. Having Jonathan India healthy will help. I love Tyler Stevenson, their young catcher. He hit 300 last year. But Nick Senzel at this point, I think, is a bust. Joey Votto's kind of washed. Will Myers is older. That's how that you're looking at. Kevin Newman's probably a more top prospect with the Pirates who didn't work out. And then you're looking at T.J. Friedel and Chad Pinder they've picked up. Lineup isn't good. The rotation, very, very young. I like Nick Lodolo a lot. I think he's got a chance to be a really good starter. Hunter Green, he throws 100. Problem is, it goes straight down the middle. And in the major leagues, that ball goes to 400 feet. So if he can locate his fastball better, he's got a chance to be very special. But that pitcher's one of the worst pitchers in baseball last year. He's got to get better. And outside of that, you're looking at Graham Ashcraft and Luis Sessa. This rotation isn't that good. And their bullpen might be the worst bullpen in baseball. It is terrible. Absolutely abysmal. The only good reliever they really had last year, TJ Antone, had Tommy John, so he's out for the season. He had Tommy John in August, so you won't see him probably all year. This team's going to be horrible. I don't think David Bell is that good of a manager. They could easily lose 100 games. And the Pirates somehow might be worse. They have some young guys in their lineup they like. Their offseason wasn't as bad as people thought. You had Andrew McCutcheon. I think they could flip Carl Santana. They could flip him. He can still give you 20 home runs. You had G-Man Choi. He'll probably play first base. Austin Hedges, who can't hit, but he's a great defensive catcher. You had Rich Hill and Vince Velasquez for depth in their rotation. Still, this lineup is very young. I love O'Neal Cruz. He's really special. I love Brian Reynolds. Much for now, they should hold on to him. To Brian Hayes, amazing third baseman. I do think his bat will catch up. We'll see what happens. So they got Andrew McCutcheon probably hitting third in the order. He's past his prime. The lineup could, I think, surprise me, but their pitching will not. Mitch Keller was a lot better last year. We'll see what happens with him. Rich Hill's like fucking 50. Looks like he's 60. I was taking him as a fifth starter, not as a third starter, which he probably is on my team. JT Brubaker, Rosalie Contreras, the rest of the rotation isn't good, and their bullpen's terrible. I love David Bednar. The rest of their bullpen is meh. They're on their team. They're a team that I think could be like the Orioles team that came in like, oh god, they're going to lose 105 games, and then all of a sudden, maybe that win go 83 and 79 and almost make the playoffs, but maybe win like 72, maybe 75. For now, I'll say probably it's going to be another 100-loss season. I just don't trust the Pirates, but they're a team that they did a couple of good things in the offseason in the bargain bin because of the Pirates, but did a couple of nice things. Could be, I don't think they're like a team like, the Nationals, who's probably 4 or 5 years away. They're probably like maybe 2 or 3 years away. So, on to National League West, San Diego Padres. I think they're going to be beat up the Dodgers. They got a great lineup. They got Soto, who last year was off last year. He didn't want to be in Washington. But when he's on, might be the best hitter in the league. You have Machado, who's a beast. You had Bogarts, who I wouldn't have given 11 year, but he's a great hitter. Cronenworth's really good. Matt Carpenter, you bring in Matt Carpenter, who last year was hitting 320 of like 15 home runs in 40 games with the Yankees before he got hurt. He won't do that. We can give you something. Trent Grisham strikes out a lot, but he's got power. Also, Noah was pretty good. And Fernando Tatis, tough at playing late. They're going to get him back probably by the end of April. He's got 20 games left on his suspension. So they might have the best lineup in the league by like the end of May. I know people are a little concerned with their rotation, but I don't have any concern. Their top three is fantastic. Joe Musgrove's a stud. Yu Darvish is a great pitcher. Blake Snell is very good. And Nick Martinez pitched well. I think Seth Lugo, I think he truly is a star. The Mets used him as a reliever because they needed him. And he pitched a little better as a reliever than a starter, but I think he could eat some innings for you as your fifth starter. I think they got a nice bullpen with Josh Hader closing. We got Robert Suarez. So, obviously, they had a big offseason adding Bogarts. They added Matt Carpenter. You had Seth Lugo for some rotation depth. They had a pretty nice offseason. So, I like what they're doing. This team, I think, was one of the league's best teams. I think they could win 100 games. Okay, the Los Angeles Dodgers will I got them on 98 wins. They'll easily still be in the playoffs. Probably the first wild card in the National League. but they're not quite as good as they usually are. They didn't spend as much money. You know, they lost a bunch of guys. They lose Turner, who's one of the league's best shortstops. They lose Tyler Anderson, who had a 2.54 ERA for them. Justin Turner was still a nice bat to have. You lose him. And one of their best relievers, Blake Tryon, they won't have him for the entire year because of Tommy John. They still got a great lineup. You got Mookie, Max Muncy when healthy is very good. Freddie Freeman's a beast. Will Smith. So their first four to lineup is really good. JD Martinez is still pretty good, but he's a little older. The back half of the lineup is a little worrisome. I like Chris Taylor. You know, 2 years ago he was an all-star. Last year kind of took a step back. You know, Miguel Rojas isn't ready for his bat. Devin Lux hasn't impressed so far. He still is young. And I love, if everything goes right, the rotation could be top 3 in the league. You got Julio Urias, who's a stud. Kershaw is still a great pitcher. Tony Gonsolin's really good. Dustin May's got all the talent in the world. Even Syndergaard's still pretty good. But they got a lot, that rotation also has a lot of injury concerns. And they do have a great bullpen, so they got some pretty good depth. The team just isn't quite the same Dodgers team that, you know, although they were full in the playoffs every year. Like, all right, this team, you can book them for 100 wins. It's not quite the same. You can book them for maybe 95, but it's not quite the same. Now, the San Francisco Giants, I don't even know where to start. They had one of the more tumultuous offseasons in recent memory. They had Aaron Judge, who last year was the league's best player, and then they didn't. They didn't. 7 minutes later, Jim was like, oh, wait a minute. My bad, guys. Nothing set in stone yet. He spelled his name wrong, and then he goes back to the Yankees. So, and then they got Correa. Like, we got Correa. Boom, let's go. One of the best top 3 shortstops in the league, arguably. 2 weeks later, like, oh, his leg is like in 9 pieces. Yeah. Fountain was like, yeah, we're not gonna do this. So, to Giants fans, sorry, I guess. I don't really know what to say. They actually have some pretty good pitching. You know, Logan Webb is developing into an ace. I like Alex Cobb. They had Shamanaya, who I think last year was up and down. I think he's a good middle rotation guy. I like Ross Stripling. They got a very good rotation. I like their bullpen. You know, Camilo Doval closing, and you add Luke Jackson, who if healthy, is very good. You add Taylor Rogers. He pairs with his brother Tyler. I don't think their lineup's that good, though. I like them giving Doug Pearson a qualifying offer. He had a career last year. You know, J.D. Davis, after coming off from the Mets, played very well. You had Hanger, who if healthy is very good, but probably he's never healthy. Conforto is a really good player, but he hasn't played in a year. Hasn't been good in 2 years. You know, Crawford's past his prime. Joey Bart's been a bust so far. Yastrzemski hasn't fouled up his rookie year. Where Flores isn't that great anymore. I don't think they're going to score enough runs. I'll give them 83 wins. I don't think they make the playoffs. And then Arizona's interesting. They got a lot of good young players. You got Gabriel Moreno, who's a stud young catcher in the making, I think, for Dalton Varsho. You also got Lourdes Gurriel. You got a lot of young guys. Corbin Carroll is on the premise. We saw a glimpse of Alec Thomas last year. Christian Walker's got a lot of power. Nick Ahmed. I like Second on the top of the rotation. I don't think they're there yet. I'll give them 75 wins or so. They're not there yet. And then there's the Colorado Rockies, who are just awful. Just book them for 100 wins. I'm not even going to go into that. Lineup's not that good, and their pitching is probably the worst in the league. All right. Only thing I have to say is Nia Jackson. Now, like she returned to the Rumble, I'm hearing it might be just a one-off. She doesn't have a contract right now. You know, she's been very anti-WWE since she left in 2021. So we'll see what happens there. But for now, it appears she's still not with WWE. That's all I got for you guys today. Tomorrow, Justin's going to be joining me. So I might do some MLB predictions tomorrow. Might save it for Monday. We'll see. But don't miss tomorrow. The Talk Sports with Jake and Justin in the Morning Collab is here tomorrow. Until next time, so long. Have a great day.